Hello everyone. So today I'm going to read from chapter 46, page 46. Chapter is the same, the second one, and we are about to read Keys to Mastery. Let's go. One can have no smaller or greater mastery than mastery of oneself. Leonardo da Vinci. In the stories of the greatest masteries, past and present, we can inevitably detect a phase in their lives in which all of their future powers were in development, like the cra- um, chrysalis of a butterfly, the spark of their lives. A largely self-directed apprenticeship that lasts some 5 to 10 years receives little attention because it does not contain stories of great achievement or discovery. Often in their apprenticeship phase, these types are not yet much different from anyone else under the surface. However, their minds are transforming in ways we cannot see but contain all of the seeds of their future success. Much of how such masters navigate this phase comes from an intuitive grasp of what is most important and essential for their development. But in studying what they did right, we can learn some invaluable lessons for ourselves. In fact, a close examination of their lives reveals a pattern that transcends their various fields, indicating a kind of ideal apprenticeship for mastery. And to grasp this pattern, to follow it in our own ways, we must understand something about the very idea and necessity for passing through an apprenticeship. In childhood, we are inculcated in culture through a long period of dependency, far longer than any other animal. So today my target is at least to finish this chapter, but I think it's going to be a bit longer. From 47 to 70. Wait a second. Let me use my phone. Hmm. Okay, so today my target is to just read. Okay, wherever. So, Much of how much masters navigate this phase comes from an intuitive grasp of what is most important and essential for their development. But in studying what they did right, we can learn some invaluable lessons for ourselves. In fact, a close examination of their lives reveals a pattern that transcends their various fields, indicating a kind of ideal apprenticeship for mastery. And to grasp this pattern, to follow it in our own ways, we must understand something about the very idea and necessity for passing through an apprenticeship. In childhood, we are inculcated in culture through a long period of dependency, far longer than any other animal. During this period, we can learn language, writing, math, and reasoning skills, along with a few others. Much of this happens under the watchful and loving guidance of parents and teachers. As long as we get older, greater emphasis is placed on book learning, absorbing as much information as possible about various subjects. Such knowledge of history, science, and literature is abstract, and the process of learning largely involves passive absorption. At the end of this process, usually somewhere between the ages of 18 and 25, we are then thrust into the cool, harsh work world to fend for ourselves. When we emerge from the youthful state of dependency, we are not really ready to handle the transition to an entirely independent phase. We can carry with us the habit of learning from books or teachers, which is largely unsuited for practical, self-directed phase of life that comes next. We tend to be somewhat socially naive and unprepared for the political games people play. Still, uncertain as to our identity, we think that what matters in the world is gaining attention and making friends. And these misconceptions and naivety are brutally exposed in the light of the real world. If we adjust over time, we might eventually find our way, but if we think too many mistakes, we create endless problems for ourselves. We spend too much time entangled in emotional issues, and we never quite have enough detachment to reflect and learn from our experiences. The apprenticeship, by its very nature, must be conducted by each individual in his or her own way. To follow precisely the lead of others or advice from a book is self-defeating. This is the phase in life The principle is simple and must be engraved deeply in your mind. The goal of an apprenticeship is not money, a good position, a title, or a diploma. But okay, wait. The principle is simple and must be okay. Where I was. Okay, if we adjust over time, we might eventually find our way. But if we make too many mistakes, we create endless problems for ourselves. We spend too much time entangled in emotional issues and we never quite have enough detachment to reflect and learn from our experiences. The apprenticeship, but by its nature, must be conducted by each individual in his or her own way. To follow precisely the lead of others or advice from a book is self defeating. This is the phase in life in which we finally declare our independence and establish who we are. But for this second education in our lives, so critical to our future success, there are some powerful and essential lessons that we all can benefit from, that we can guide us away from common mistakes and save us valuable time. These lessons transcend all fields and historical periods because they are connected to something essential about human psychology and how the brain itself functions. They can be distilled into one overarching principle, for the apprenticeship phase, and a process that loosely follows three steps. The apprenticeship is simple and must be engraved deeply in your mind. The goal of an apprenticeship is not money, a good position, a title, or a diploma, but rather the transformation of your mind and character. The first transformation on the way to mastery. Hmm. You enter a career. You enter a career as an outsider. You are naive and full of misconceptions about this new world. Your head is full of dreams and fantasies about the future. Your knowledge of the world is subjective, based on emotions, insecurities, and limited experience. Slowly, you will ground yourself in reality in the objective world represented by the knowledge and skills that make people successful in it. You will learn how to work with others and handle criticism. In the process, you will transform yourself from someone who is impatient and scattered into someone who is disciplined and focused, with a mind that can handle with a mind that can handle complexity. In the end, you will master yourself and all of your weaknesses. This has a simple consequence. You must choose places of work and positions that offer the greatest possibilities for learning. Practical knowledge is the ultimate commodity and is what will pay you dividends for decades come far more than the paltry increases in pay you might receive at some seemingly lucrative position that offers fewer learning opportunities. This means that you move toward challenges that will toughen and improve you, where you will get the most objective feedback on your performance and progress. You do not choose apprenticeship that seem easy and comfortable. Exactly. Do not choose an apprenticeship which is cheap and easy. Otherwise, it will be very, very dangerous because it is comfortable for you now. In this sense, you must see yourself as following in the footsteps of Charles Darwin. You are finally on your own, on a voyage in which you will craft on your own future. It is the time of youth and adventure, of exploring the world with an open mind and spirit. In fact, whenever you must learn a new skill or alter your career path later in life, you reconnect with that youthful, adventurous part of yourself. Darwin could have played it safe, collecting what was necessary and spending more time on board studying instead of actively exploring. In that case, he would not have become an illustrious scientist, but just another collector. He constantly looked for challenges, pushing himself past his comfort zone. He used danger and difficulties as a way to measure his progress. You must adopt such a spirit and see your apprenticeship as a kind of journey in which you will transform yourself rather than as a drab indoctrination into the work world. The apprenticeship phase, the three steps for hormones. With the principle outlined above guiding you in your choices, you must think of three essential steps in your apprenticeship, each one overlapping the other. These steps are deep observation, the passive mode, skills acquire, uh, skills acquisition, the practice mode, experimentation, the active mode. Keep in mind that an apprenticeship can come in many different forms. It can happen at one place over several years, or it can consist of several different positions in different places. Step 1, observation, the passive mode. When you enter a career or new environment, you move into a new world with its own rules, procedures, and social dynamics. For decades or even centuries, people have compiled knowledge of how to get things done in a particular field, each generation improving on the past. In addition, every workplace has its own conventions, rules of behavior, and work standards. There are also all kinds of power relationships that exist between individuals. All of this represents a reality that transcends your individual needs and desires. And so your task upon entering this world is to observe its reality as deeply as possible. The greatest mistake you can make in the initial months of your apprenticeship is to imagine that you'll have to get attention. It is true. It is true. Okay, this is true. This is what. Okay, let me tell you something. Okay, right now I'm doing an internship. Okay, and now my goal is money. My goal is to attract people's attention. That is my goal, and I'm doing it intentionally or unintentionally. I'm doing it. Okay, I am in a position where right now I am competing with my own teammates, putting them down. Yesterday I saw that. Okay, I have achieved more than my teammates combined. Okay, there are 4 people and I'm the fourth one. And I have seen that I have gained the recognition from my boss. I have gained the money. I mean, it's a monthly paycheck, so at the end of the month, I'll be paid. But I have seen that yes, I'm running after money, and that keeps me motivating. Like, okay, I will get these $1,000. Okay, so let's work. Okay, I will get appreciation. Let's work. But you don't know that it will increase the burden, it will increase the load. Okay, so that's the main thing. He's paying you, that guy is paying you money. Okay, and after the transaction is done, he's not going to give you a job. Okay, or any kind of favor for free. So that's all I would say. So at the starting, yes, Robert Greene is right. Okay. The greatest mistake you can make in the initial months of your apprenticeship is to imagine that you have to get attention, impress people, and prove yourself. These thoughts will dominate your mind. Yes, it is dominating, and close it off from the reality around you. Any positive attention you receive is deceptive. It is not based on your skills or anything real, and it will turn against you. Exactly. Okay, so do whatever you have asked for, or and don't overdo it. Okay, because your boss will get the most out of you. He's just paying money, right? So worked 9 to 5 means 9 to 5, not more than that, not less than that. Okay, instead you will want to acknowledge the reality and submit to it, muting your callers and keeping in the background as much as possible, remaining passive and giving yourself the space to observe. You will also want to drop any perceptions you might have about this world you are entering. If you impress people in these first months, it should be because of the seriousness of your desire to learn. Not because you're trying to rise to the top before you are ready. Well, if you want to impress people in these first months, then you should impress with the seriousness of your desire to learn, not because you are trying to rise to the top before you are ready. So these are the very important thing that you can do. You will be observing two essential realities in this new world. First, you will observe the rules and procedures that govern success in this environment. In other words, this is how we do things here. Some of these rules will be communicated to you directly, generally the ones that are superficial and largely a matter of common sense. You must pay attention to these and observe them, but what is of far more interest are the rules that are unstated and are part of the underlying work culture. These concern style values that are considered important. They are often a reflection of the character of the man or woman on top. You can observe such rules by looking at those who are on their way up in the hierarchy, who have a golden touch. More tellingly, you can observe more who are more awkward, who have been chatised for particular mistakes or even been fired. Such examples serve as negative tip trip wires. Do things this way and you will suffer. Mistakes or even being fired. You can observe such rules by looking at those who are on their way up in the hierarchy, who have a golden touch. More tellingly, you can observe those who are more awkward, who have been chastised, okay, for particular mistakes or even been fired. You can learn from it, like do these things and you will be suffer. The second reality you will observe is the power relationships that exist within the group. Who has real control, through whom do all communications flow, who is on the rise and who is on the decline. These pre- uh, these procedural and political rules may be dysfunctional or counterproductive, but your job is not to moralize about this or complain, but merely to understand them to get a complete lay of the land. Every task you are given, no matter how menial, offers opportunities to observe this world at work. No detail about the people within it is too trivial. Everything you see or hear is a sign for you to decode. Over time, you will begin to see and understand more of the reality and eluded you at first. As you amass more information about the rules and power dynamics of your new environment, you can begin to analyze why they exist and how they relate to a larger trends. In the field, you move from observation to analysis, honing your reasoning skills, but only after months of careful attention. Understand there are several critical reasons why you must follow this step. First, knowing your environment inside and out will help you in navigating it and avoiding costly mistakes. You will see in any you will see in any encounter what most people miss because they are thinking of themselves. You will cultivate a keen eye for human psychology and strengthen your ability to focus. Finally, you will become more accustomed to observing first, basing your ideas and theories on what you have seen with your eyes and then analyzing what you find. This will be a very important skill for the next creative phase in life. Step 2, skills acquisition, the practice mode. Okay, the first step is to observe. Okay, understand the environment, the people, what mistakes you should avoid. Okay, that's it. At some point, as you progress through these initial months of observation, you will enter the most critical part of the apprenticeship, the practice toward the acquisition of skills. Every human activity, endeavor, or career path involves the mastering of skills in some fields. It is direct and obvious, like operating a tool or machine or creating something physical. In others, it is more of a mix of the physical and mental, such as the observing and collecting of specimens for Charles Darwin. In still others, the skills are more nebulous, such as handling people or researching and organizing information. As much as possible, you want to reduce these skills to something simple and essential, the core of what you need to get good at, skills that can be practiced. In acquiring any kind of skill, and there exists a natural learning process that coincides with the functioning of our brains. This learning process leads to what we shall call tacit knowledge, a feeling for what you are doing that is hard to put into words but easy to demonstrate in. Okay, what? tacit knowledge, a feeling for what you are doing that is hard to put into words but easy to demonstrate in action. Okay. And to understand how this learning process operates, it is useful to look at the greatest system ever invented for the training of skills and the achievement of a take-it knowledge, the apprenticeship system of the Middle Ages, in which young people from approximately the ages of 12 or to 17 would enter, work in a shop, signing a contract that would commit them for the term of 7 years. At the end of this term, apprenticeship would have to pass a master test or produce a master work to prove their level of skill. Because few books or drawings existed at the time, apprenticeship would learn the trade by watching masters and imitating them as closely as possible. Okay, because few books or drawings existed at the time, apprentices would learn the trade by watching masters and imitating them as closely as possible. They learn through endless repetition and hands-on work with very little verbal instruction. If one added up the time, the apprenticeship ended up working directly on materials in those years. It would be amount to more than 10,000 hours, enough to establish exceptional skill level at a craft. The power of this form of tacit knowledge is embodied in the great Gothic cathedrals of Europe, masterpieces of beauty, craftsmanship, and ability, all erected without blueprints or books. These cathedrals represented the accumulated skills of numerous craftsmen and engineers. What this means is simple. Language, written, oral and written, is a relatively recent invention. Well, before that time, our ancestors had to learn various skills, tool making, hunting, and so forth. The natural model for learning came from watching and imitating others, then repeating the action over and over. Our brains are highly suited for this form of learning. Even with skills that are primarily mental, such as computer programming or speaking a foreign language, it remains the case that we learn best through practice and repetition, the natural learning process. We learn a foreign language by actually speaking it as much as possible, not by reading books and absorbing theories. The more we speak and practice, the more fluent we become. Once you take this far enough, you enter a cycle of accelerated returns in which the practice becomes easier and more interesting, leading to the ability to practice for longer hours. Yes, which increases your skill level, which in turn makes practice even more interesting. Reaching this cycle is the goal you must set for yourself, and to get there, you must understand some basic principles about skill themselves. First, it is essential that you begin with one skill that you can master, and that serves as a foundation for acquiring others. You must avoid at all cost the idea that you can manage learning several skills at a time. You need to develop your powers of concentration and understand that trying to multitask will be the death of the process. Second, this is first, no? This is second. The initial stages of learning a skill invariably involves tedium. Yet, rather than avoiding this inevitable medium, you must accept and embrace it. The pain and boredom we experience in the initial stage of learning a skill toughens our minds much like a physical exercise. Once something is repeated often enough, it becomes hardwired and automatic. This process of hardwiring cannot occur if you are constantly distracted, moving from one task to another. One action becomes automatic. You now have the mental space to observe yourself as you practice. Once an action becomes automatic, you now have the mental space to observe yourself as you practice. As you practice, you must use this distance to take note of your weaknesses or flaws that need correction to analyze yourself. It helps also to gain as much feedback as possible from others, to have standards against which you can measure your progress so that you are aware of how far you have to go. Trying to something Trying something over and over again grounds you in reality, making you deeply aware of your inadequacies and of what you can accomplish with more work and effort. If you take this far enough, you will naturally enter the cycle of accelerated returns. As elements become more automatic, your mind is not exhausted by the effort and you can practice harder, which in turn brings greater skill and more pleasure. You can look for challenges and new areas to conquer, keeping your interest at a high level. As the cycle accelerates, you can reach a point where your mind is totally absorbed in the practice, entering a kind of flow in which everything else is blocked out. You become one with the tool or instrument or thing you are studying. In essence, when you practice and develop any skill, you transform yourself in the process. Your sense of pleasure becomes redefined. What offers in immediate pleasures comes to seem like a distraction and empty entertainment to help pass the time. Real pleasures comes from overcoming challenges, feeling confidence in your abilities and gaining fluency in skills and experiencing the power this brings. Although it might seem that the time necessary to master the requisite skills and attain a level of expertise would depend on the field and your own talent level, those who have researched the subject repeatedly come up with the number of 10,000 hours. This seems to be the amount of quality practice time that is needed for someone to reach a high level of skill, and it applies to composers, chess players, writers, and athletes, among others. 10,000 hours generally add up to 7 to 10 years of sustained solid practice, roughly the period of a traditional apprenticeship. In other words, concentrated practice over time cannot fail but produce results. Step 3. Experimentation, the active mode. This is the shortest part of the process, but a critical component nonetheless. As you gain in skill and confidence, you must make the move to a more active mode of experimentation. This could mean taking on more responsibility, initiating a project of some sort, doing work that exposes you to the criticisms of peers or even the public. The point of this is to gauge your of your progress and whether there are still gaps in your knowledge. You're observing yourself in action and seeing how you respond to the judgments of others. Can you take criticism and use it constructively? Most people wait too long to take this step, generally out of fear. It is always easier to learn the rules and easy within your comfort zone. Often you must force yourself to initiate such actions or experiments before you think you are ready. You are testing your character, moving past your fears, and developing a sense of detachment to your work, looking at it through the eyes of others. You're getting a taste for the next phase in which what you produce will be under constant scrutiny. You will know when your apprenticeship is over by the feeling that you have nothing left to learn in this environment. It is time to declare your independence or move to another place to continue your apprenticeship and expand your skill base. Later in life, when you are confronted with a career change or the need to learn new skills, having gone through this process before, it will become second nature. You have learned how to learn. Basically, yeah. Okay, I think that's enough for today. And I have read till 58 from mid. Okay, this is the symbol from where I have to continue from tomorrow. And yeah, I think tomorrow if I read 10 pages, then I can finish this chapter 2, like 71 till 71 I can read it. Yeah, okay, so thank you for watching. We will see you in the next time. Bye bye. Okay, I can use this as a bookmark. Okay, so this is my bookmark that I have made from paper, which is very helpful. Yeah, that's it. Keep reading. Bye.